I never planned to live a life people whisper about. I just wanted enough money so my mother didn't have to count coins before buying bread, but somewhere along the way, the coins turned into guns, and people started whispering my name for all the wrong reasons. The night I met her, I walked into that roadside diner looking like a man the city had already chewed up and spat out. No suit, no gold watch, no driver at the door. Just a torn black shirt sticking to my skin, dried blood on my sleeve and boots still wet from the rain, and the things I'd done before sunrise. The place smelled like burnt toast and old coffee. Neon light flickered against the windows, painting the rain in tired colors. A jukebox in the corner played some sad country song that didn't match the fear in my chest. Outside, 3 of my cars waited a few blocks away, engines off, men watching. Inside, I sat alone at a sticky table, pretending to be nobody. For someone like me, pretending to be broke is easy. You leave the Rolex in the safe, trade the Italian leather for a thrift store jacket, and tell your men to disappear. No one sees the empire when you hide the crown. No one knows that a few hours earlier, a man had begged on his knees not to be thrown into the river with his debts. No one guesses that the quiet guy in the corner owns half the night in this city. "Coffee?" a soft voice asked, cutting through my thoughts. I looked up and saw her. She was not the kind of woman men in my world brag about at cigar tables. She was bigger, round in a way that made her apron strings dig into her waist, curls escaping from a messy bun, cheeks flushed from the heat of the kitchen. Her black and white uniform was a little tight, a little worn, and there was a small coffee stain on her collar she hadn't noticed. But her eyes were warm in a way I had almost forgotten existed. She held the pot of coffee like it was heavier than it really was, like the whole day was pressing down on her shoulders. When she saw the blood on my sleeve, her eyebrows lifted for just a second, but her voice stayed calm. "Rough night?" she asked. I nodded, studying her. Most people either flinched when they saw blood or their gaze got greedy, curious. Hers didn't. She looked at me the way my mother used to look at stray dogs on the street, tired but gentle. "Refills on the house," she said. "You look like you need it." She poured the coffee and I watched her hands. No shaking, no fear, just a small silver ring turning slowly on her finger, the way people fidget when they're worried about rent, not bullets. "You sure?" I asked. "I don't have much on me tonight." That part at least was true. I had one folded bill in my pocket and a gun at my hip. Everything else, cash, cards, driver, waited unreachable because I wanted to see something. I wanted to know if kindness still existed without a tip attached. She gave a little half smile, one corner of her mouth lifting. "You're still breathing, aren't you? That's enough to pay for coffee in this place." Her words hit me harder than they should have. In my world, breathing is a debt you constantly owe to someone else. A favor, a deal, a threat. No one gives you anything on the house. Everything has a price, even mercy. "What's your name?" I asked, breaking my own rule. Usually when I run this kind of test, I say nothing. I just sit, watch, and leave a wad of cash under the saucer if the person passes. But something about her made me want to know. "Maya," she said, with a Y. My mom thought it sounded magical. She shrugged. The magic kind of skipped the rent and landed on my hips instead, but we survive. She said it like a joke, but there was a crack under her voice, the kind you only hear when you've spent years listening to people right before they break. People in my business cry in expensive suits too, just not in public. "Lorenzo," I replied, and the name tasted strange in a place so small. In the city, that name makes doors open and men kneel. Here at table 3, under a flickering light, it was just a name. She didn't flinch. She didn't connect it to the news, to the rumors, to the bodies that sometimes floated down the river when deals went wrong. "Nice to meet you, Lorenzo," she said. "You want something to eat? You look like you skipped a few meals and a couple of good decisions." I almost laughed. No one talked to me like that. Not in the clubs I owned, not in the mansions where I signed deals. People told me what they thought I wanted to hear or they shut up. This woman, this plus-size waitress with tired eyes and a crooked name tag, she was not afraid to be real. "What can I get for $5? I asked, sliding the crumpled bill toward her. My empire could pay the electricity bill of this entire street for a year, but tonight I wanted to feel what it meant to not have enough. She looked at the bill, then at me. I saw the calculation in her eyes. $5 doesn't even cover a decent burger anymore, not in this economy. Her manager stood behind the counter, counting receipts, not paying attention, but I could tell she was used to every cent being watched. "Don't worry about it," she said quietly. "I'll fix something. My boss doesn't check the soup." I frowned. "You'll get in trouble." "Story of my life," she whispered under her breath, then forced a bigger smile. "You got any allergies, mystery man with $5? "Just bullets," I said before I could stop myself. She froze for half a heartbeat, then gave a short, tired laugh. "Same, I'm allergic to bullets, bills and boring men. So far you're safe on 2 out of 3. As she walked away, I watched the way some of the guys at the counter looked at her, not with respect, with that ugly mix of judgment and desire, the kind that tries to make a woman feel small for taking up space. I saw one of them elbow his friend, whisper something. Her shoulders stiffened just a little, but she kept moving, kept smiling. I knew that armor. I wore the same kind, just made of different material. I hated that look. Maybe because once, a long time ago, my sister used to get it too, before she disappeared from this city, and from my life because of a war I started and couldn't finish. My phone buzzed in my pocket, one vibration, code from my men. They'd spotted a black sedan circling the block twice. No lights, windows tinted too dark, not ours. "Danger close." I typed back with my thumb under the table. "Stay back, do not approach, I'm alone." I was the one who chose to walk into that diner without protection. I told myself it was just another test, a way to see if any honest soul was left in this rotten city. But as the second vibration came, car parked, 2 men inside, I realized this night was no longer just my game. Maya came back with a chipped plate, a grilled cheese sandwich cut diagonally, extra fries piled on the side, and a bowl of tomato soup that smelled better than half the meals I'd eaten at high-end restaurants with white tablecloths. "This is more than 5, I said. She set it down, lowering her voice. "You look like you needed a win today. Let me be generous at least once before my shift ends and life beats it out of me again, okay?" I stared at the food, then at her. In my world, favors are chains, you pay for them in blood. And here she was, giving me one without asking my name a second time, without knowing who I was. A small drop of red slid from my sleeve and fell onto the table, fresh, not dried. She saw it. Her eyes narrowed, not in disgust, not in panic, just in focus. She stepped closer, one hand on the table, the other gently touching my arm, fingers firm through the thin fabric. "You're hurt," she said softly. "That's not old blood." "It's nothing," I lied, "just a scratch." She pressed a little and I felt the stab of pain shoot up to my shoulder. Her jaw tightened. "Nothing doesn't bleed through a shirt," she murmured. She looked around the diner, then at me, her voice dropping even lower. "Listen, I don't know what you've done or who you are, and honestly I'm too tired to care. But if you pass out at my table, I have to fill out a lot of paperwork." Her attempt at humor couldn't hide the concern in her eyes. "Come on," she said. "There's a storage room in the back. I've got a first aid kit. You can eat after I make sure you're not dying on my watch." I should have refused. A boss doesn't follow a stranger into a back room, not when enemies might be parking right outside. But something in me, the part that still remembered what it felt like to be taken care of, not controlled, stood up before my brain could argue. I followed her past the counter, past the flickering neon sign that hummed like a warning. Her hand brushed mine for just a second, warm and steady, guiding me through the narrow hallway that smelled of bleach and old onions. My phone buzzed again. "They're coming in," the message read. Maya opened the storage room door, oblivious to the danger pushing in on all sides, and glanced back at me with those tired, kind eyes. "Sit," she said. "Let me see what the world did to you tonight." Behind us, out in the diner, the bell over the front door rang once, clear and sharp, and the sound slid straight down my spine like the first breath before a gunshot. The storage room light buzzed like an angry insect, swinging slightly on its wire as if even the bulb was too tired to stay still. Boxes of canned tomatoes and bags of flour lined the walls, stacked higher than Maya's shoulders. The air was thick with the smell of detergent, old oil, and something lemon-scented that failed to cover the heaviness of the place. "Sit," she said, dragging an old metal chair away from the wall with a scraping sound, "before you fall." I lowered myself onto it, every muscle on alert. The room had one small foggy window too high to climb through fast, one narrow door to the main hallway, no other exit, a box cutter on the shelf, a mop, a rusted fire extinguisher. I counted everything automatically, habit, survival. Maya climbed on a crate, reached up, and tugged a faded red first aid kit from a hook. The plastic clacked in her hands as she dropped back down with a soft grunt. "Okay, mystery man," she said, setting the kit on an upside-down bucket, shirt off. I hesitated, not because of the pain. I've had bullets carved out of me in basements that smelled a lot worse than this room, but my skin is my story, ink, scars, symbols that can get a man killed if the wrong eyes read them. She watched my silence, then rolled her eyes gently. Relax, I've seen more naked shoulders than a hospital nurse. None of them were rich. Against my instincts, I pulled the torn shirt over my head. The cut along my side burned as the fabric scraped it. The air touched the wet heat of the wound, and I sucked in a breath. Maya's eyes dropped to my chest, taking in the tattoos, the bullet scars, the long pale line across my ribs from a knife that almost ended me 5 years ago. Her gaze lingered, not in hunger or shock, but in quiet recognition of pain. "Damn," she muttered, "the world really did a number on you." She knelt in front of me, opening the kit. The bandages inside were cheap, the kind that barely stick, but her hands moved with a careful steadiness. She soaked a cotton pad in antiseptic and glanced up. "This is going to sting," she warned. "It's fine," I said. The liquid hit raw flesh like fire. I kept my face calm, but my fingers curled around the edges of the chair. She noticed anyway, of course she did. "Breathe," she murmured. "I can't afford to have you pass out. I already almost dropped a tray on table 5. My boss will kill me if I add a corpse to the list." A sad smile tugged at my mouth. "You always talk this much when someone's bleeding on your floor." "Only when I'm nervous," she answered honestly, "or when I care." Those last words floated there between us, surprising both of us. Through the door, faint but clear, I heard the bell over the diner entrance ring again. Heavy footsteps, men's voices, my skin tightened. Maya pressed gauze to my side, her fingers brushing the roughness of the gun at my waistband. She froze. Her eyes dropped, saw the black metal, the worn grip, the position. Our gazes met. "You carry a lot of secrets for a broke man," she said quietly. I didn't move. "You said you weren't going to ask who I am." I said I was too tired to care. She taped the gauze down, movement slower now. "That doesn't mean I'm stupid." The footsteps outside came closer, boots on old tiles. A new voice joined the first, low and cold. "Check the back, he's hurt, won't get far," the voice ordered. Maya's jaw tightened. She swallowed, her throat working. We both heard it, we both understood. "They're not here for me," she whispered. "No," I admitted, "they're here for me." Silence stretched. Her hand stayed on my side, warm over the bandage, as if she was holding the wound and the truth in place. "You in some kind of trouble?" she asked, though we both knew the answer. "In my world, trouble is the air," I said. "If you open that door and walk away, they might leave you alone." "And what will they do to you?" she asked. "That's not your problem." Her eyes burned with something sharp, anger maybe, or defiance. "You bled on my table," she said. "You ate my soup, Lorenzo. You brought yourself into my problem." A shadow moved under the crack at the bottom of the door. Someone was in the hallway now. I slipped my gun free, keeping it low by my leg, safety off, barrel pointed to the floor. My heartbeat was steady, the way it always is right before the world either explodes or obeys. But for the first time in a long time, my fear wasn't for me. Maya's gaze flicked to the gun, then to the door. I saw her calculating tip money, rent, her manager, her life. I saw the exact moment she chose. With a sudden urgency, she stood up and started dragging a stack of flour bags in front of the shelves behind me. "What are you doing?" I hissed. "Hiding you," she said. "Unless you want to repaint my walls with brain matter, I just cleaned back here." She pushed the heavy bags with surprising strength, her breath coming faster. I moved too, backing into the gap between the shelves and an old unused freezer. The metal was cold against my bare back. She grabbed another box, then another, building a crooked wall between me and the door. For a second, our faces were inches apart in the narrow space. "Don't make a sound," she whispered. "No matter what you hear, you owe me that at least." "Maya." Her hand pressed briefly against my chest, right over an old scar. The touch shocked me more than any gunshot. "Trust me," she said. The word felt foreign. In my business, trust is what gets you killed, but I nodded anyway. She turned, snapped the light off, and the room sank into shadow. Only a thin stripe of brightness from under the door remained. The smell of flour and antiseptic mixed with the iron scent of my own blood. The handle on the door rattled once. Then slowly it turned. The door swung open, and light burned in, framing the silhouette of a broad-shouldered man. I heard his boots step over the threshold, heard the shift of his weight in the floorboards. A rough voice cut through the dim. "We're looking for a guy, long hair, beard, bleeding, where is he?" From my hiding place, I saw Maya's outline, straight and still, facing them with only a first aid kit and a tired heart between her and whatever came next. She inhaled, steadying herself. And in that heartbeat before she spoke, I realized my life, my empire, my sins, now rested on the decision of a waitress who barely had $5 to her name. The storage room felt smaller with them inside. Two men, I could tell by their footsteps, their breathing. One took 2 slow, confident steps in, the other stayed near the door, blocking the exit. Smart, they weren't amateurs. From the crack between the boxes, I saw boots first, scuffed leather, city dirt stuck in the seams, dark jeans, heavy jackets. The taller one had a tattoo creeping up his neck, black lines vanishing into his collar. Maya stood between them and the inner part of the room, arms folded over her chest like a makeshift shield. "Plenty of guys with long hair come through here," she said, voice steady. "Most of them just owe me tips, not blood." The man with the neck tattoo took another step, close enough that if I reached out, I could grab his ankle and snap it. My fingers twitched. "This one's special," he said. His accent carried the city's east side in it, the part of town even my men moved carefully through. "Came in bleeding, sat alone, name's Lorenzo, you see him." Hearing my own name in that room did something to my chest, like a ghost calling me out of hiding. Maya didn't flinch. If anything, she seemed to pull herself taller. "Look around," she said, gesturing at the clutter. "You see any injured millionaires hiding behind tomato cans?" He scanned the room lazily, eyes sliding over the stacks. For a terrible second, they lingered right where I was. My thumb rested on the safety of my gun. One move, one wrong breath, and this place would turn into a coffin, for them, for me, for whatever fragile piece Maya still had. From the diner, the faint murmur of customers trying to pretend they weren't listening seeped in. The clatter of cutlery had stopped. Fear has its own kind of silence. The second man, still by the door, picked up Maya's abandoned first aid kit and turned it in his hands. "Why's this open?" he asked. "Who you patching up back here, sweetheart?" "Myself," she said without missing a beat. "Burned my arm on the grill." She held up her forearm where a faded old scar did indeed curve along her skin. "Some of us don't have the luxury of getting hurt on weekends." Neck tattoo chuckled, a low, humorless sound. "You're funny, I like funny." His gaze slid over her, slow, disrespectful. "Big girl like you must be good at hiding things." Maya's jaw clenched, but her voice stayed level. "Big girl like me carries this place on her back for minimum wage. You want coffee or you want to keep insulting the staff?" For a second I forgot my own danger and felt a dark, hot anger rise up. Men like him are the same everywhere, small inside, loud outside. He stepped closer, invading her space. "Don't lie to me," he said softly. "We know he came in here. We saw the blood on the door. Our boss wants Lorenzo alive. We find out you helped him disappear. This whole diner becomes a memory, you understand?" My name again, alive. That meant they wanted a message sent, not just revenge. Rival family, most likely, old debt calling. Maya went very still. I saw the moment she put it all together. The rumors on the news, the whispers about the river, the name she'd heard earlier and pretended not to recognize. For one heartbeat, her eyes flicked, not to my hiding place, but to my torn shirt wadded on the chair. Neck tattoo followed her gaze, walked over, picked the shirt up. He turned it, fingers passing over the dried blood. "This his?" he asked. Maya shrugged, the motion small but deliberate. "Could be mine. I bleed too, you know, comes with having a pulse." He stepped close enough that she had to tilt her head back to look at him. He caught her chin between 2 fingers, not gently. "You got a smart mouth for a waitress," he said. "Maybe somebody needs to shut it for you." My gun was up before I could think, safety off. Barrel aligned with the back of his skull through a narrow gap between boxes. One squeeze and it would all be over, for him, for me, for the quiet life in this place. But if I fired, the man at the door would shoot. The manager, the cook, the couple at table 4, they'd all become collateral, and I had enough ghosts. Maya's voice cut through the tension, low and firm. "Touch me again," she said, "and you'll have more trouble than whatever this Lorenzo guy gave you." He laughed, but there was a flicker of uncertainty now. "From who? The cook?" he sneered. "From me," she replied. The words hung there, not loud, not dramatic, just true. He searched her face, maybe looking for fear. Instead, he found a woman who'd spent years swallowing humiliation to keep a job, and tonight had finally reached her limit. Something fragile shifted in the room. The guy at the door broke it with a sigh. "She's wasting our time," he muttered. "Boss said the car's hot outside, cops are making rounds, we grab the guy, we go, he's not here." Nectar held my shirt up one last time, scowled, then tossed it back on the chair. He gave Maya's shoulder a little shove as he stepped away, not enough to knock her over, just enough to remind her how easily he could. "If he comes back," he said, "you tell him Timur is looking, and you tell him next time we won't be so polite." "Polite," Maya repeated under her breath. "Right." They left, boots in the hallway, the door swinging shut behind them. A moment later, the bell at the front rang again. Their voices faded into the drone of the street. Silence settled, heavy and shaking. Maya leaned back against the closed door, eyes shut, shoulders trembling just enough that someone who didn't know what survival looked like might have missed it. I waited 10 seconds, 20, my heart refused to slow. Then I pushed the boxes aside and stepped out of my hiding place, shirtless, bandaged, gun still in my hand. She opened her eyes and looked at me. No scream, no dramatic gasp, just a long, searching stare at the man she'd just lied and risked her job and maybe her life for. "You can put that away now," she said hoarsely, nodding at the gun. "You're scaring the flower." I slid it back into my waistband. "You lied for me," I said. "Yeah," she answered. "Apparently I do that for dangerous men now, add it to the list of bad habits." "Why?" I asked. She considered that for a moment. "Because they walked in here like they owned the place," she said slowly, "and you walked in here like you'd lost everything you owned. If someone has to bleed on my floor, I'd rather it be the first ones." I didn't deserve that reasoning, not even close. "You know who I am," I said quietly. It wasn't a question. Her eyes flicked to the tattoo over my heart, the symbol that had been on the news more than once, blurred in security footage, whispered in late-night gossip. "I knew the second you said your name," she replied. "Lorenzo Costa, the man mothers tell their kids not to grow up to be." I exhaled, a humorless huff. "You still brought me soup." She lifted one shoulder. "I also date losers and feed stray cats, bad patterns." "Maya," I said, "you shouldn't be anywhere near me." "Well, it's a bit late for that, isn't it?" She pushed herself off the door, knees wobbling slightly. "Besides, my life was already a mess before you dropped your blood all over it." She moved closer, studying my face, really seeing me now, not just the tired customer, but the man whose name was attached to headlines and bodies. "My little brother," she said quietly, "used to talk about you, not like the news did. To him you were a rumor, a promise, a way out of poverty. He was 16 and stupid and thought running packages for guys with fast cars would fix everything. Now he's in prison, 3 years into a 15-year sentence." A heavy weight pressed against my lungs. I had hundreds of boys like that in my past, faces blurred by time, names swallowed by my ledger. "What's his name?" I asked. "Javier," her voice cracked just a little. "He wasn't even working for your people directly, just orbiting, but the streets all run back to the same few men, don't they?" I didn't answer, couldn't. She drew in a breath, forcing herself steady. "So yeah, I know exactly what someone like you does to families like mine, and I still hid you." "That doesn't make sense," I said. She gave a small, sad laugh. "Maybe not, but when those men grabbed my chin like they owned my face, I remembered my brother, scared, stubborn, in over his head. And then I remembered the way you looked at me when you walked in, like you weren't sure if you deserved to sit at a normal table anymore." Her eyes shone but no tears fell. She'd learned a long time ago how to keep them in. "So I took a stupid bet," she finished softly. "I bet that if I gave mercy to the devil for once, he might remember how to be human." The words hit harder than any bullet I'd ever taken. "Maya," I started, but there was nothing I could say that would erase the years behind me. She looked up at me, tired and unafraid now. "Don't make me regret it, Lorenzo," she said. "Don't make me regret being the only idiot in this city who still believes a man like you can choose something different, just once." For the first time in years, I felt something I didn't have a word for, a tightness in my chest that wasn't fear, wasn't anger, wasn't the rush of power. Maybe it was the weight of her faith. And as I stood there in that cramped storage room, bare-chested, bandaged by a woman who could barely pay her bills. I realized something that scared me more than Timur's men, more than the cops, more than my own rivals. I was more afraid of disappointing her than of dying. And in my world, that kind of fear changes everything. The taste of her words stayed in my mouth longer than the antiseptic sting in my side. I was more afraid of disappointing her than dying. Maya checked the time on the small plastic watch around her wrist and blew out a breath. "You need to get out of the storage room," she said. "If my boss finds you half naked with me back here, I'll be fired before the gunmen even get a second chance." She said it lightly, but her hands were still trembling when she reached for the light switch. I pulled my torn shirt back on, each movement dragging at the bandage. When she opened the door, the noise of the diner washed in forks, low conversations, the jukebox stuck on the same sad song, life pretending it hadn't just brushed up against death. Heads turned when we stepped out. People pretended they weren't looking, then stole another glance. The couple at table 4, the trucker by the window, the old man who'd been nursing the same cup of coffee for an hour. They were all watching, trying to read the story in the dried blood on my sleeve and the new tightness in Maya's jaw. Her manager, a thin man with a balding head and a permanent frown line, marched over, wiping his hands on a stained towel. "Maya," he snapped, "what was that about? Those guys asked for you. Then I find you gone, customers waiting. You think this is a social club?" "I was dealing with a situation," she said, keeping her voice polite but firm. "We're fine now." "Fine," he scoffed. "You disappear, they leave without ordering, and I'm fine." His eyes ran over me. "Who's this? Another charity case?" I opened my mouth, then closed it. The old me would have bought the building just to fire him. The man I was trying to remember how to be said nothing. Maya's knuckles went white around her order pad. "He's a customer," she replied, "who paid for his meal." The lie was small, but she said it like a promise. The manager grumbled something about unreliable staff and stormed off. She watched him go, then glanced back at me with a tired half-smile. "Welcome back to normal life," she said. "No guns, just bad bosses." I slid into my original seat. The grilled cheese was cold now, the fries limp, but it was the best meal I'd seen in days. War spoils appetites, guilt does too. She topped up my coffee without asking. For a few moments we let the silence sit between us. "You shouldn't have lied for me," I said finally. "Not to them, not to your boss, not to anybody." "You already said that," she answered. "Didn't listen the first time, not planning to start now." She wiped a spot on the table that didn't need wiping. "Eat, it tastes better when it's not covered in blood and threats." I picked up the sandwich, took a bite. Cheese, butter, cheap white bread. Somehow it tasted like childhood, back when my mother stretched a loaf to feed 3 boys and a husband who never came home sober. Maya leaned against the table opposite me, the strain of the day etched into the fold of her shoulders. "How did he get in?" she asked quietly. "This Timur." "Through a door I should have closed years ago," I said. "Another boss, another empire, another man who believes fear is the only language people understand." Her eyes met mine. "And you?" "I used to believe that too," I admitted. "Some days I still do." She studied me, as if weighing my words against the things she'd already risked for me. "You asked why I helped you," she said. "You want to ask why I ever let my brother near a world with men like you too." "You don't owe me that," I replied. She shook her head. "Maybe I owe it to myself to say it out loud." She glanced toward the counter, where her manager had his back turned, then lowered her voice. "My dad left when I was 12, she began. "My mom cleaned houses. I watched kids after school, cooked, did homework with my brother. Javier, he was always the smart one, the one teachers liked, but school doesn't pay the light bill." Her fingers twisted her ring, over and over. "These guys started hanging around the neighborhood," she continued. "New sneakers, nice cars, always had cash. They'd give the little ones $20 to carry a bag to the next block just this once. You know how that story goes." I did. I'd written half the chapters. "By the time I realized what he was doing," she said, "it was too late. Police raid, wrong place, wrong time, right skin, right neighborhood. They found him with someone else's package in his hands." I remembered, not his face, not then, but the file, the report on my desk. A kid had taken the fall instead of my lieutenant. The lieutenant was valuable, the kid was replaceable. My signature, cold and clean, had turned that boy's life into a shield for my own. I looked down at my coffee so she wouldn't see the recognition in my eyes. They told us if he gave names, they'd cut his sentence, Maya said. He didn't, said he wouldn't be a snitch, said the streets had a code, he was 16. Her voice broke just a little. He learned loyalty from the wrong examples. From men like me. I swallowed hard. I'm sorry, I said. She gave a tired smile, one that didn't reach her eyes. You didn't arrest him, Lorenzo. No, I replied softly. I just built the world that made it possible. We sat with that truth for a moment. Can you get him out? She asked suddenly. The question hit like a punch. Direct, no begging, no drama, just simple, desperate hope. I have money, I said. Lawyers, judges who owe me favors, I can try. She shook her head, surprising me. Not like that. I don't want my brother walking out because some dirty judge got paid off. I don't want him to owe you. He already owes your world enough. Then what do you want? I asked. She thought for a long second. Visit him, she said finally. You, in person, not as some ghost who runs the city from the shadows, as the man he decided to believe in instead of school and honest work. I frowned. Why would he want that? Because he still thinks you're untouchable, she answered. A legend. If he sees you for what you are, a tired, bleeding man who eats cold sandwiches in cheap diners, maybe he stops worshipping the wrong gods. Her words left a burn in my throat. I don't know what I am anymore, I admitted. Then figure it out, she said gently, before Timur and men like him decide for you. My phone buzzed in my pocket. I checked it under the table. Car still circling, same plates, Timur's men not gone. Another message followed from my oldest lieutenant. We can take them, say the word boss. Boss. The word felt heavier than usual. I typed back negative, no gunfire near the diner, stay invisible, track only. Maya watched my face, reading what I didn't say. They're still out there, aren't they? She murmured. Yes, sir. And you're going to walk right back into that, she said, not as a question. I've walked into worse, I replied. I'll leave through the alley, they won't see me. She exhaled slowly, then nodded, as if agreeing to some private deal with fate. I get off at midnight, she said. If I'm not dead by then, I'll go home, heat up leftover rice and pretend this was just another long shift. You try not to bleed in any more storage rooms tonight. I stood, pulling a small, worn leather card holder from my pocket. It was the only expensive thing I'd kept on me, a habit, like carrying ID to your own kingdom. I took out a card and slid it under the edge of my cold plate. Embossed black, heavy stock, no last name, just LOINZO. And a number that rang straight to me, bypassing every layer of protection I'd carefully built. She saw the card, eyebrows lifting. That doesn't look like a broke man's business card, she said quietly. I told you, I replied, pretending is easy. She didn't pick it up, not yet. Go, she said, before your enemies come back for dessert. I walked to the door, every instinct tugging at me to stay, to barricade, to turn this tiny diner into a fortress. But guns and fear had already taken too much from her life. I wouldn't bring more inside unless I had to. The bell chimed as I stepped out into the wet evening. The rain had slowed to a steady drizzle, streetlights smearing gold across puddles. My black sedan waited half a block down, engine low. As I moved toward it, I saw movement across the street, a skinny kid in a grey hoodie, phone raised, pointing it at the diner's glowing windows. He snapped a picture, glanced at me, then at his screen. A second later, my own phone buzzed. We intercepted a message, my lieutenant texted. They sent a photo of the waitress. Caption, she lied for him. I stopped walking. Through the glass, I could see Maya moving from table to table, topping off coffees, forcing a tired smile, completely unaware that a new target had just been painted between her shoulder blades. This had started as a test, to see if kindness still existed without a price tag. Now the price of her kindness was my world coming for her. And the worst part, I was the only one who could stand between them. Rain blurred the windshield as we watched the diner from half a block away. I sat in the back of the sedan, shirt sticking to my bandage, gun warm against my ribs. Marco, my oldest lieutenant, sat in the front passenger seat, eyes scanning the mirrors. The driver's fingers tapped the steering wheel in a soft rhythm that belied his tension. She doesn't know, Marco said quietly. No, I answered. Timur doesn't leave loose ends, he went on. He finds out someone lied for you, he'll make an example, small place, easy target, gas can, a match, done. The image of flames licking those old wooden walls burned across my mind, overlaid with Maya's laughter, her stubborn chin, the way her hands had steadied on that first aid kit even when fear shook her bones. She has nothing to do with this, I muttered. Marco glanced back at me. Boss, nobody outside our circle has anything to do with this, that doesn't stop bullets. He was right, in our world innocence was not protection, sometimes it was bait. Headlights swept by as a patrol car rolled slowly down the street, then turned the corner. The city exhaled again. You want we should move her? Marco asked. Quick in, quick out, she won't even know our names. She's not cargo, I snapped, sharper than I intended. He quieted, watching me. She hid you, he said after a moment. That storage room, that's not just about first aid, is it? I stared at the glowing diner sign. She reminded me of my sister, I admitted, before I lost her to this life, before I turned every woman who ever cared about me into a liability. And still, he said softly, you came here alone. I almost laughed. I came here to play God for a night, pretend to be broke, see if anyone would treat me like a man instead of a name. I didn't plan on bleeding on her floor. I didn't plan on any of this. You never plan the things that change you, Marco replied. You just survive them. Through the window, I saw the crowd thin. The trucker left. The couple at table 4 paid. The old man at the counter pulled on his coat. It was nearing closing time. Pull up, I said, park right outside. Marco frowned. You sure that puts you? Right where I need to be, I finished. If Timur's watching, he'll see I came back. Maybe he thinks twice about touching her if she's under my shadow. And if he doesn't think twice, Marco asked. Then he dies fast, I said, and messy. The sedan rolled forward. When we stopped by the entrance, I caught a glimpse of myself reflected in the diner glass, a tired man with old scars, expensive car framing him in shadows. Not the nobody who'd walked in hours earlier. I stepped out, ignoring the sting in my side, and pushed open the door. The bell chimed, softer this time in the nearly empty room. Maya stood at a table stacking plates. Her manager was counting cash in the corner, mouth twisted, radio low. Only one customer remained, a woman with a baby asleep in a stroller scrolling her phone. Maya saw me and something like relief flickered across her face, then confusion as she took in the car outside, the man standing stiffly near the door in a dark coat. You came back, she said. I tend to do that, I replied, bad habit. Her gaze slid past me to the sedan, to Marco now leaning casually against the hood, pretending to smoke. That your Uber? She asked dryly. Something like that. Her manager slammed the register shut. Maya, finish up. I want to close in 15. We're not running a 24-hour hospital. She took a slow breath. Yes, sir. I nodded toward the back. Can we talk? Somewhere that doesn't smell like burnt bacon and disappointment. Her lips twitched despite herself. Storage rooms closed. Emotional damage limit reached for the night. Outside then, I said, just for a minute. She hesitated, eyes searching mine for I don't know, lies maybe, or the truth. The woman with the baby grabbed her things and left, the bell chiming one last time. The diner suddenly felt too quiet. Maya wiped her hands on her apron and nodded. Let me clock out before my boss docks my pay for breathing wrong. She disappeared behind the counter, punched a code, hung up her apron. When she came back, she had her worn denim jacket on, bag slung over one shoulder, a tired set to her jaw. We stepped out into the drizzle. The air felt colder than before. You're scaring me a little, she said, wrapping her jacket tighter. And not in the usual you're a mafia boss way. In the you look like you're about to say something I can't unknow way. She wasn't wrong. I leaned against the brick wall, feeling the roughness through my shirt. Marco stayed near the car but far enough to give us space, eyes scanning the street. Timur knows you lied, I said, no point in sugarcoating it. She stilled. How? Kid with a hoodie and a cheap phone, I answered. He took your picture, sent it to the wrong people. In our world, information moves faster than regret. Her fingers gripped the strap of her bag tighter. So what happens now? Nothing, I said, if you come with me. There it was, the line. She let out a short, incredulous laugh. You want me to what? Get into your shiny car and disappear into the night? I still have rent due in 3 days. If you stay, you'll have more than rent to worry about, I said quietly. Timur will wait until no one's around. He'll make sure people know this place suffered because someone here helped me. It's how men like him speak. Her eyes flashed. Men like you, she corrected. I took it, I deserved that. Yes, I said, like me. She looked back at the diner. The neon sign buzzed, flickering. Inside, her manager wiped the counter, oblivious. Her whole life was in that worn-out building, tired booths, cracked tiles, a time card with her name on it. How long, she asked. If I go with you, how long until it's safe to come back? I thought of turf wars that had lasted years, families who moved once and never returned. I don't know, I said honestly, maybe never. She nodded slowly, the weight of that word settling over her. I can't just walk away, she whispered. This place, it's not much, but it's what I have. My mom's name is on the electric bill. Javier's letters come here. If I disappear, who takes care of her? Who visits him? Coming with me doesn't mean forgetting them, I said. I'm not asking you to vanish. I'm asking you to stay alive long enough to hug your brother when he gets out. She turned to me, eyes shining in the yellow streetlight. You said you could try to help him, she said. Was that just something rich men say when they feel guilty? I swallowed, the truth pressed hard against my teeth. There's something I didn't tell you, I said, about Javier. Her shoulders tensed. What? I remember his file, I admitted. Not his face, but the report. My lieutenant was there that night. The drugs were his. Your brother took the fall. The police officer who brought the case up suggested we could fix the evidence, blame it on someone else. On the cop himself, even. Her stare sharpened, cutting. And she asked, a voice flat. And I said no, I forced out. I said let the kid take it. It would scare others. Send a message that we don't clean up after anyone, not even teenagers. The words tasted like ash. So yes, I said, I didn't arrest your brother, but I chose not to save him when I had the power. Silence dropped between us, thick and cold. Maya stared at me as if seeing a stranger for the first time. For a long moment, all the warmth, all the reluctant trust, drained from her face, leaving only hurt. You signed his life away, she said quietly. Yes, for a lesson, she whispered, for fear. Yes, I repeated, my voice felt too small. She looked down, biting her lip hard enough to draw blood. When she looked up again, her eyes were wet but clear. You know what the worst part is, she said. Somehow I already knew. Somewhere in my gut, I knew the man who owns this city had to have stepped on a lot of people like Javier to climb his ladder. I just wanted to be wrong. I wanted to believe that under all that power, there was still someone who remembered what it was like to be hungry and scared. I swallowed. There is, I said. He's standing right in front of you, and he is telling you that he was wrong. Sorry doesn't give my brother back his 20s, she said. Sorry doesn't fix my mom's heart when she puts up that stupid Christmas tree and one chair is empty. No, I said, but maybe what I do next can. She shook her head. You think pulling me into your world is justice? I think letting you die for a choice I made years ago would be another crime, I replied. Hate me, spit in my face every day. Just don't stay here and wait for Timur to finish what I started. Her eyes searched mine, looking for the lie. The rain shifted, falling harder now, drumming on the car roof, the diner awning, the street. Behind us, an engine roared. Headlights swept across the building, too fast, too bright. A black van turned the corner, slowing only when it reached the curb opposite us. Windows dark, plates half covered in mud. Marco straightened, hand inside his coat. I didn't need more proof. Danger doesn't knock, it circles once, twice, then bites. Get in the car, I said, moving closer to Maya. Now. She hesitated, torn between the world she knew and the unknown monster offering her protection. Lorenzo. The first shot shattered the diner window. Glass exploded outward, raining onto the sidewalk where we'd been standing seconds ago. Her manager's shout cut through the air, sharp and high. Maya gasped, instinct pulling her toward the door. I grabbed her arm, yanking her down behind a parked car as another shot cracked the air. A neon letter from the sign burst, sparks showering the wet pavement. Stay down, I barked. "What are you doing?" she cried, panic surging. "He's still inside." More shots, screams, tires screeching. My gun was in my hand before the thought finished forming. Marco was already returning fire, crouched behind the sedan, his own weapon barking in controlled bursts. Through the chaos, I heard the roar of the van's engine as it reversed, tires skidding on the wet street. They weren't here to finish a war, just to send a message. The van sped off into the night, bullets chewing up the asphalt as Marco emptied his clip at the rear bumper. One shot hit, glass shattered, but they kept going, turning the corner and vanishing into the maze of lights. Silence fell in jagged pieces, broken only by the crackle of damaged neon and the ragged breathing of 3 men and 1 terrified woman. Maya wrenched her arm free and stumbled to her feet, running toward the diner. I followed, pain flaring from my side with every step. Inside, the air was thick with dust and the metallic tang of adrenaline. Glass covered the floor like frozen rain. The counter was splintered. The coffee pot lay in shards, dark liquid seeping across the tiles. Her manager crouched behind an overturned chair, eyes wild, hands over his head. A small cut bled on his temple where a shard had grazed him. He wasn't dead, not tonight. "Everybody okay?" I called, scanning for other bodies. No one answered. There was no one else. Just the 3 of us and the ghost of what this place had been 10 minutes ago. Maya stepped into the middle of the wreckage, turning slowly, taking in the ruined windows, the broken sign, the bullet hole in the far wall where her favorite family usually sat on Sundays. "This was my whole life," she whispered. I'd seen bombed-out clubs, burned warehouses, men crying over the ashes of their expensive toys. None of it hit me like the sight of that woman standing ankle-deep in broken glass, fingers shaking around a wad of crumpled tip money she'd been clutching in her pocket when the first shot rang. Her manager staggered to his feet, fury taking over fear. "This is your fault," he shouted at her, pointing a trembling finger. "Those men came asking for you, then this guy shows up again and now look," he gestured wildly at the destruction. "You brought this here." Maya flinched as if he'd slapped her. I stepped between them, the old Lorenzo rising up without permission. "Careful," I said softly. The manager's eyes flicked to my gun, to Marco now standing in the doorway, scanning the street, weapon still drawn. Understanding dawned, slow, ugly. "You," the man stammered, "you're one of them." "I'm the reason Timur didn't walk in here himself tonight," I replied. "You're welcome." Fear flooded his face, drowning his anger. "Take your mess and go," he babbled. "Both of you, I don't want any trouble." "You already have trouble," I said. "The only question is whether you survive it." Sirens wailed in the distance. Someone had called the cops. Maybe a neighbor, maybe the woman with the baby. Time was collapsing. I turned to Maya. Her cheeks were wet now, silent tears tracing clean lines through the dust on her skin. "You said you couldn't walk away," I said gently. "The choice just got made for you." She looked around, taking one last slow inventory of the life she'd tried so hard to build with minimum wage and maximum effort. Then she closed her eyes, inhaled once, and when she opened them again, something inside had hardened. "My mom will kill me," she whispered. "I'll deal with your mom," I said. She gave a wet, broken laugh. "You, against a Latina mother with a chancla, good luck." It was a small, cracked joke, but it was a step away from despair. I'd take it. I held out my hand, palm up, offering not just escape but complicity, a ticket into a world she knew she should hate. "This is the part where you decide," I said quietly. "Do you trust the devil you know, or the one who just admitted he ruined your brother's life and is desperate enough to try to fix it?" She looked at my hand, at the ruined diner, at the door where blue and red lights were beginning to strobe faintly in the distance. Finally, she reached out and took my hand. It was not a romantic gesture, it was survival, it was fury, it was faith stubborn enough to stand in the middle of a battlefield and demand something better. "Don't make me regret this," she said, echoing her words from the storage room. "I already regret enough," I answered. "I'd rather spend the rest of my life fixing one thing right." We moved faster. Marco led the way, clearing the sidewalk. The manager yelled something after us, curses, maybe prayers, but the sirens drowned him out. I opened the sedan door and guided Maya inside. She sank into the leather seat like someone falling into deep water, clutching her bag and her tips as if they were the only solid things she had left. As the car pulled away, glass crunching under the tires, I looked back. The diner shrank in the rear window, flickering sign, shattered windows, light flashing from the approaching police cars. A small, ordinary place that had somehow become the center of my universe in one night. Maya stared straight ahead, jaw clenched, eyes far away. "Where are we going?" she asked finally, voice hoarse. "To a safe place," I said, "somewhere Timur's men won't touch you." And then she pressed. I watched the city slide past, all the streets I owned, all the corners where boys like Javier still waited for the wrong kind of miracle. Then, I said slowly, we start rewriting some of the rules, for you, for your brother, for anyone who ever thought a man like me couldn't change. She turned her head, studying my profile in the dim cabin light. "You really think you can do that?" she asked. I didn't answer right away, because I wasn't sure, because power resists change and I had built my throne on fear and debt. But when I finally spoke, the words felt more like a promise to myself than to her. "I don't know," I said, "but tomorrow I'm going to stand in front of Javier face to face and tell him exactly what I did. If I can survive that, maybe I deserve a chance to try." Maya looked away, blinking hard, her reflection in the window layered over the city. Outside, the diner disappeared behind a bend in the road. Inside, a waitress who had lost everything and a mafia boss who had never truly owned himself sat side by side in the dark, heading toward a future neither of them understood, and a reckoning that would break one of them or both. And for the first time in years, as the rain softened and the sirens faded behind us, I felt something like hope wrapped in the sharp, terrifying edge of what I knew had to come next.